Welcome back, y'all. This episode was tough. My heart truly broke for Catherine. Now, we all know how this story ends. None of this is a surprise to us, yet it was hard to watch because you see that she truly loves Henry and she truly has the best interests of England at her heart. She's a good sister-in-law. She cares about people, and to see her go through all of this and to be treated in such a way, not to mention all of the poor treatment she had leading up to her even marrying Henry, it was really hard to watch. That being said, let's talk a little bit about what happened. So this was the episode where we really start to see the challenge and the battle between Catherine and Wolsey. So we know that he's King Henry's right-hand man. He advises him. He's in his ear all the time. And so up until now, we've seen how he's been in this power struggle with Catherine, trying to get Henry's ear and trying to essentially control him from behind. Henry's young, so it's understandable that he is easily influenced. This is an older man. He's a man of the Lord, allegedly. And he's trying to get his hooks into Henry. And Catherine sees all of this. And she tries to warn him, and he's on the fence. Like, you can see he's listening to her, but at the same time, you can tell that he's already under Wolsey's spell to a certain extent. We saw last episode that they had lost the baby and they were having issues, and there was a divide between Catherine and Henry. He's so disappointed with her and disappointed in general that this is the second time his son has died. He has no heir, and this is very important to him. So Catherine is feeling the brunt of his disappointment. And this is what makes me very sad, is that we all know that's not Catherine's fault. You know, back then, babies died. Babies died early. There were a lot of stillbirths. There were a lot of miscarriages. It was just a sign of the times. So a child not living long or not even being born is really no one's fault. But all of the blame would lay on the woman. And that's exactly what's happening with Catherine here. She is being blamed for the fact that he has no heir. At the end of the last episode, they had kind of reconciled. They made a commitment to make it work and to fix their problems because they are in love and they are at the very beginning of their reign, and there's so much ahead of them. And there's still time to have babies. So when this episode begins, we see that Catherine is pregnant again, like fully pregnant. She's, late term, probably, third trimester. So Henry's happy. He thinks he's getting his heir. And again, this is so interesting to me how you see in a lot of these period pieces, everybody, if they wanted a boy, they would speak as if it was a boy. He's going to be strong. That's my son. My son is coming. And nobody knows. There's no guarantee. So it's almost as if they're setting themselves up for failure, because if it's a girl, you've had all of this build up to have a boy, and then what happens when it's not, which we'll see. So Catherine's back in Henry's good graces because she's pregnant. Wolsey has asked Henry to make him a chancellor. Now, he just recently elevated him from a chaplain to an archbishop, and now he wants to be a chancellor. Being a chancellor essentially makes him the second most powerful man in England, and he knows that. That's exactly what he's doing. Catherine, in her wisdom, if you elevate him, that's what's going to happen. And you just elevated him from a different level. Like, what's going on here? Like, you're giving him too much power. So Catherine is telling Henry this. He's receiving it, but he hasn't really made a decision. So this is kind of where Henry goes wrong, is when Wolsey asks him about the status of his elevation, he tells him that Catherine thinks that it might be going to his head. So this is just more ammunition for Wolsey to hate on Catherine and try to create a problem between the two of them. And he does this by trying to get Henry's eye onto another woman. Now, you'll remember a couple of episodes ago when Catherine was pregnant the second time, Wolsey told Henry, don't have sex with her because you don't want to damage the baby. And, you know, a large reason why he said that was because he is trying to create problems between the two of them. While Catherine is pregnant, Wolsey turns Henry's attention to some chick who's in the court. Now, this is a woman who is married, but apparently is in a bad marriage because her husband's not really checking for her, so she's flirting with everybody in court. Wolsey makes sure that Henry pays attention to her, hoping that he will create this situation in which this woman becomes a mistress, hence pull him away from Catherine. So we see that Henry starts to pay attention to this girl, but at the same time, there are all these whispers and rumors swirling around court that Henry is cheating on Catherine. And she gets a sense of it because, again, Catherine is very shrewd. She's very observant. So as she's walking through the corridors, she hears people talking and she thinks snickering, whispering, gossiping about her. And she asks Lena, so what's going on? Like, do you know anything? And Lena's hesitant because she's heard rumors, but she doesn't want to upset Catherine, especially now that Catherine's in her 3rd trimester. And it's so important that the baby is healthy. But eventually she relents because Catherine pressures her like, hey, listen, if you know something, you have to tell me. And she tells her, you know, there's a rumor that somebody went into the king's room at night. I don't know if it's true or not. And this kind of solidifies what Catherine's already thinking. Catherine goes to Henry and tells him, you know, hey, I'm in confinement now, which means, you know, they kind of just, when a woman goes into confinement back in the day, she's essentially like on bed rest. She's set away from everybody else. She's kind of sitting in a room all day, just waiting to give birth. So she goes into confinement and she has a conversation with Henry and she's like, listen, I know that you have needs and I can't fulfill those right now because I'm pregnant. So if you need to do what you have to do, okay, I'll accept that, but just tell me because I want to know. I don't want to hear it third party. I want to know what's going on and we can deal with it, which was, again, a very mature way to handle this. And Henry is like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing, you know, basically like you're tripping. Everything is fine between us. So we move forward and Catherine goes into labor. We see her water break and I don't know how far along she is, but apparently she's saying it's too early. So she's so fearful that the baby's going to be premature. The baby might die, you know, all these things because she's had 2 horrible experiences in the past. So she gives birth and it's a healthy baby, but it's a girl. And we all know that this is going to be Princess Mary. It was really sad to watch, again, because this goes back to like the way that women were treated. And, you know, it's almost as if it's her fault that the baby's a girl. It's hurtful that a girl is not good enough. You know, the fact that this is a healthy baby is not, the fact that it's a healthy baby isn't enough for people to be happy because he's so hell-bent on having an heir and he's made himself believe all this time that it was a boy and it's not. And so he's frustrated, he's angry, he's disappointed. Catherine feels all these things because she feels like I've disappointed him again. And she's already feeling like their relationship is tenuous because of Wolsey and because of him cheating and, you know, all the other things that have happened in the past. So it's just hard to watch her. She's sacrificed so much. You know, she may have lost that second baby because she went up to fight that battle in Scotland. She's just done so much for him and his family and for his country, which I guess is now her country too. And to see all of her attempts just fall short of no fault of her own, it's just really, really, it's hard to watch and it's sad. So this is another disappointment. It's another blow to them that it's a girl. And Catherine is so disappointed that she can't even hold her baby. She's like not even bonding with Mary because she's just so hurt and upset. Henry is disappointed. He's angry. And again, this is just kind of creating a bigger rift between the two of them. So we fast forward and it becomes confirmed that Henry's not cheating with the lady, I think her name, Lady Anne Hastings or something like that. They're not cheating with the woman that Catherine had suspected. And then we see the scene at the end where Bessie Blount, who I did tell y'all to look out for in episode 1, she's one of Catherine's ladies in waiting. Catherine goes to find Bessie, and she runs up on Bessie having sex with Henry. So she sees it with her own eyes. It confirms all of her suspicions, and it's Bessie, her lady in waiting. Heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And we don't know at this point how long Henry has been sleeping with her. You know, this could be something that only happened after he got disappointed that Catherine had a girl, or it could be that this is something that's been going on for a long time. We don't know yet. Maybe it'll come up in next week's episode or further down in the season. But yeah, heartbreaking. It just really goes to show how poorly women were treated back then. You know, how much pressure they had to fulfill things that they had no ability to guarantee. You know, no woman could guarantee a baby. Sure as hell couldn't guarantee a boy. Couldn't guarantee the baby was going to be healthy or live long or any of those things. Yet that burden was placed on them. And when they, quote unquote, fell short in that category, it was almost as if that was a green light for their husbands to have mistresses or to leave them altogether. And we all know that that's not something that can be put on the woman from a biological point of view. But yeah, so this was a hard episode. I mean, it was a really good episode. It was juicy, but it was just sad to watch. Catherine, my heart breaks for you. Another storyline. So we're also following what's going on with Margaret, Henry's sister, and she's the Queen of Scotland. She was married to James. He died at the Battle of Flodden, and she's now the regent. So she's in charge because she and James had 2 sons, and so now his eldest son is going to be king, but he's a child. So somebody has to rule in his stead until he's of age. So that would be that would be Margaret's role as the regent. Problem is, she can only remain regent if she remains unmarried. But she goes ahead and she marries Angus. And Angus, if you remember, was one of the Scots up there who was supportive of her when all of the rest of them weren't giving her any respect. He was the one giving her support and showing her the way and how to support and how to uplift her people. And she falls in love with him. And we see in this episode that they actually went ahead and got married on the low. The Scots in the court, you know, the higher ups in the Scottish court who already don't like Margaret, they busted on them while they're in the bedroom and try to and take him away as if they're going to punish him or kill him or imprison him or whatever. And she reveals, well, he's my husband, so you got to let him go. And when they hear this, they say, oh, okay, so you got married. Oh, well, then you're going to no longer be the regent of Scotland. And she's like, no, I'm still the queen. And there's a battle, and they chase her, and then her and Angus and her 2 sons go into hiding, like in a pantry somewhere in the castle. She sends a letter off to Henry to let him know, hey, I got trouble over here. You need to send the army. Henry is pissed with her because he knows that if she lets go of her control, then it's going to open the door for somebody else to come in and take control of Scotland. He's pissed because he told her, just don't get married and you can remain regent. And she went and got married. So I understand that he's upset, but at the same time, you know, kind of it is what it is, and that is your sister. He refuses to send an army. Catherine's trying to convince him, hey, listen, you know, that's your sister. You know, it's the right thing to do because it's your sister. You can't just leave her hanging there. And if you don't do anything, it's going to show that you are weak. And you have to maintain this presence of being powerful because it's important, the relationships between Scotland and England. He resists. They go back and forth. She goes and she makes an executive decision, and she sends General Howard and a couple of men up there to negotiate. When she tells Henry this, he's pissed because he's like, you just went behind my back and did something. She's like, hey, listen, it needed to be done. Again, Catherine is very shrewd. She sees long term. She's a little bit older than Henry, and I don't know if that's some of it or it's just the way she was raised, but she's quite intelligent. And I think in the beginning, he respected her counsel so much because of that. Goes and she sends the troops. So, well, not really troops. She sends General Howard and a couple people. So when they get to Scotland, finally Margaret comes out of her hiding because she thinks that, you know, the English army is here to support her. Come to find out it's only 6 people. But it's better than nothing. So when she comes out to speak to General Howard, hoping that there's going to be some kind of a negotiation, come to find out that Angus betrays her, and he and one of the other Scots steal their sons and take them back into the castle. So now she's distraught, she's crying, she's trying to get them back. General Howard's like, hey, listen, let's go and let's kind of, you know, regroup. We'll figure out what our next move is. Don't spaz out now. This is not the time. We can't win this battle right now, but let's leave. We will get you reunited with your sons. Don't worry about it. So they ride down to England. You know, some people could say that was such a dumb move on Margaret's part, and it may have been. It probably wasn't the most shrewd political move. I don't know how old she is at this point, but think about it. This is a woman who left her home country, went to Scotland, probably as a young girl, probably like in her high teens. I don't even know if she was in her 20s, to marry a man much older than her, whom she didn't love, who already had a bunch of children, who, you know, had children outside of their marriage. She goes to a country that, you know, hates English people. So you can understand how she needed to find somebody to love, and she needed that connection with somebody, and Angus gave her that. Now, it turns out that he wasn't the man she thought he was. He wasn't strong enough and resilient enough to stay the course. And so he backstabbed her, and that's really no fault of her own, you know. And even when she's talking to General Howard, I think he says something to the effect of like, you wanted company, you wanted love. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. We all make decisions for love and for, we make decisions with our heart, and that's essentially what she did. And it didn't work out for her, but, you know, what are you gonna do? So she comes back down to England. She confronts Henry like, hey, dude, like, you couldn't even send an army to me? And of course, he's like, well, you know, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So they're arguing kind of like brother and sister, which was kind of cute. It was funny because he looks at her, he said, you look old. And she's like, well, you look fat. It was cute because even though he's the King of England, she's the Queen of Scotland, at the end of the day, they're brother and sister. And I just thought that was a really cute moment between the two of them. But I do love Margaret's relationship with Catherine. She does truly see her as a sister. And, you know, she goes to Catherine. She said, hey, listen, you have to force him to send an army. At this point, Catherine has had a baby girl. She's suffering in her own misery because of all the other situations that's going on. So she's like, listen, I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you right now because she's suffering. And Margaret tries to convince her, listen, you have a beautiful baby girl. Be happy with that. But it's bigger than that, and we all know that. Next week, we'll see more of what's going on with this love triangle with Bessie and Henry, and are there others, and what Catherine knows, and is she going to confront him, and all of this other stuff. So it's going to be juicy, and we'll also see what's going to happen with Margaret in Scotland and her sons. Yeah, that's it. So it was a really good episode, really, really good, captivating, very, you know, it was like a soap opera. Like, I just couldn't take my eyes off of it, and I just sat there clutching my pearls the whole time. It really kept me engaged. The acting is amazing. These actors, I'm not familiar with them, and that doesn't mean that they're not big actors in England or overseas. I just don't know who they are, but they are amazing, and they are telling this story in such a great way, and they're believable, and they are really embodying their characters. I just love it. I would love to hear your thoughts about this episode. What did you think? What do you think is going to happen next? That's it. We will talk next week, and bye.